The Silent Sentinels. The stars had long watched over humanity's peaceful expansion. For 32 centuries, the species that once tore itself apart with nuclear fire had known only the quiet hum of colony ships and the gentle glow of terraforming equipment. The United Solar Federation, a coalition of 247 human-settled worlds, maintained what they called the watchful peace. Admiral Helena Chen gazed through the viewport of the USF Harmony, her weathered face reflecting in the reinforced glass. At 63, she had never fired a weapon in anger, nor had her parents, grandparents, or any ancestor for nearly 100 generations. The Harmony, despite its classification as a defense vessel, served primarily as a diplomatic flagship and disaster response coordinator. "Admiral, we're receiving the weekly reports from the frontier outposts," announced Lieutenant Fabon Blovu, his fingers dancing across the holographic interface. Helena nodded. "Anything noteworthy?" "Outpost Horizon has detected unusual energy signatures beyond the Cygnus Gap," Fabo replied, his brow furrowing. "They're requesting analysis support." "Send the data to Dr. Kimura's team," Helena ordered, keeping her voice even despite the unusual flutter in her chest. The Cygnus Gap marked the edge of mapped space. Beyond lay only speculation and the unknown. 3 days later, Dr. Eiko Kimura stood before the senior staff, her hologram flickering slightly from the transmission delay. "We've confirmed it's not a natural phenomenon," she stated, her normally calm demeanor strained. "The energy patterns are structured, deliberate. We're detecting what appears to be a massive fleet of vessels, at least 300 ships of varying configurations. They're moving slowly but deliberately toward the Horizon outpost." Helena's hand tightened on her armrest. "First contact protocol. Already initiated, Admiral. We've broadcast greeting messages on all standard frequencies and in mathematical code. No response yet. For weeks, humanity prepared. Not for war. No one even considered that possibility. But for a historic meeting, the Federation Council dispatched its finest xenolinguists, diplomats, and cultural specialists to the Harmony, which took position near Outpost Horizon. The approaching fleet maintained its steady course, silent and impenetrable. On the 78th day since first detection, they arrived. The alien ships emerged from the darkness like obsidian sculptures, their hulls absorbing rather than reflecting light. They moved with unnatural precision, their formations complex and beautiful in their mathematical perfection. "They're broadcasting something," Thabo announced, his voice hushed with awe. A series of coded pulses filled the communication arrays. Dr. Kimura's team worked feverishly to decode them. "It's some form of introduction," she finally reported. "They call themselves the Voidborn. The message contains what appears to be a request, or perhaps a demand, for information about our systems, resource distribution, and defensive capabilities." Helena frowned. Standard interspecies protocol would begin with cultural exchange, not military assessment. "Perhaps their priorities differ from ours," suggested Ambassador Xavier Okafor, the Federation's senior diplomat. "We should respond openly, but with appropriate boundaries." For 3 weeks, the exchange continued. The Voidborn remained in their ships, refusing face-to-face meetings. Their communications grew increasingly demanding, their requests more intrusive. The Federation Council urged patience and understanding. Then, without warning, the outpost on Persephone IV went silent. "We've lost all contact," Thebo reported, his voice tight. Last transmission indicated the approach of 5 Voidborn vessels. Before Helena could respond, 3 more outposts reported similar encounters before going dark. The pattern was unmistakable. The Voidborn were systematically disabling human communications across the frontier. "This is deliberate," Helena stated, a long-dormant part of her mind awakening. "They're isolating our systems before striking deeper." The Federation Council, meeting in emergency session, struggled to comprehend the situation. For a civilization that had known only peace for millennia, The concept of premeditated aggression seemed almost incomprehensible. "We must attempt further communication," insisted Counselor Ramirez, his hologram betraying his anxiety. "There must be a misunderstanding." "With respect, Counselor," Helena responded, "the Voidborn have disabled 7 outposts while we've been talking. This is not a misunderstanding. This is the prelude to invasion." 2 days later, her assessment proved horrifyingly accurate. A massive Voidborn battle group struck the agricultural world of New Eden, bombarding its surface from orbit. Millions perished in the first hour. Aboard the Harmony, Helena received the devastating news with a calm that surprised even her. Something ancient was stirring in her blood, in humanity's collective memory. "Access the sealed archives," she ordered. Authorization Chen Alpha 973. Thabo's eyes widened. "Admiral, those files have been locked for too long," Helena finished. "The Federation has forgotten what we once were, what we might need to be again." Deep within the Harmony's secure data vaults lay information that most of humanity had willfully forgotten. The complete military history, tactics, and technologies of Earth's violent past. Knowledge preserved not to be used, but to ensure it would never be needed again. Until now. As the files unlocked, Helena felt a strange, grim satisfaction. The Voidborn had miscalculated terribly. They had observed humanity's peacefulness and mistaken it for weakness. They had seen ships without weapons and assumed humans couldn't build them. They had witnessed a civilization that chose to lay down its swords and concluded it had forgotten how to forge them. "Send emergency broadcasts to all Federation worlds," Helena commanded, her voice now carrying an edge that none of her crew had ever heard before. Authorization for full military rearmament under Article 7 of the Federation Charter. "Wake the fabrication complexes on Vulcan Station." She turned to face her officers, her eyes reflecting something primal and resolute. "The Voidborn believe they've found easy prey," she said quietly. "They don't realize they've awakened a sleeping giant." Across Federation space, ancient contingency plans activated. Hidden compartments in diplomatic vessels slid open, revealing weapon hardpoints designed to be easily retrofitted. Orbital platforms, ostensibly for climate control, reconfigured their systems to accommodate defense grids. Civilians with specific genetic markers received priority communications, descendants of military families, unknowingly carried forward through the centuries for this exact scenario. On Earth itself, beneath the peaceful surface of what had become mainly a historical preserve, massive doors rumbled open for the first time in millennia. The last weapons humanity had built before embracing peace, the most terrible and effective designs, had been preserved, not out of desire for their use, but out of respect for the knowledge and acknowledgement of what humans were capable of. The Voidborn's fatal mistake was becoming clearer by the hour. They had observed humanity for perhaps a century or two, a mere eye blink in the span of human history. They had seen only the tranquility, never understanding the sleeping dragon that lay beneath. As Helena reviewed the ancient battle plans now flooding her command systems, a cold smile crossed her face. The Federation had maintained peace for 3,000 years, not because humans couldn't fight, but because they had chosen not to. That choice was now being revoked. The awakening giant, the fabrication complexes on Vulcan Station, had been designed to build colony ships, terraforming equipment, and scientific instruments. Now they hummed with a different purpose, patterns long dormant in their memory cores guiding them to construct machines of war. The change had been seamless, as though the facilities had been waiting for this moment. On board the newly renamed USF Retribution, formerly the Harmony, Admiral Helena Chen pored over tactical displays with General Marcus Wei, a man who had spent his career as a historical researcher, but whose actual purpose was now revealed. "The Ancestral Guard has been activated on 27 worlds," Marcus reported, his voice carrying the weight of generations. 200,000 personnel with genetically preserved combat instincts are receiving accelerated training. Helena nodded, studying the holographic representation of voidborn fleet movements. They're expanding systematically. Each conquered system becomes a staging point for the next. Classic invasion doctrine, which suggests they've done this before, Marcus observed. They're experienced conquerors. But they've never conquered humans, Helena replied, her voice quiet but certain. The first counteroffensive came 3 weeks after New Eden fell. The Voidborn had established a forward operating base in the system, confident in their dominance. They didn't expect the sudden emergence of 30 Federation vessels from quantum space, ships now bristling with weapons retrofitted from the ancient designs. The battle was brief and devastating. The Voidborn, accustomed to facing frightened, peaceful species, found themselves confronted by human commanders executing maneuvers perfected in wars centuries old but no less effective. The Federation ships moved with a coordination that shocked the invaders, concentrating fire on key targets and withdrawing before effective countermeasures could be deployed. First blood to humanity, Helena remarked as the reports came in. But they'll adapt quickly. And adapt they did. The next Voidborn fleet they encountered employed new tactics, spreading their forces to negate the human tendency to focus firepower. They discovered, however, that humans had anticipated this response and deployed specialized hunter-killer squadrons that excelled against dispersed targets. For every strategy the Voidborn developed, humanity seemed to have an ancient counter already prepared. On Centaurid Prime, the Federation's second most populous world, civilian engineer Eliza Okonkwo found herself suddenly promoted to colonel based on her family lineage. Within days, she was supervising the conversion of atmospheric processors into missile fabrication plants with an expertise she hadn't known she possessed. "It's in your blood," explained her new adjutant, a woman who had apparently been monitoring her family line for generations. "Your ancestor was General Amara Okonkwo, who led the African coalition during the final war. The knowledge was preserved genetically, kept dormant until needed. Throughout human space, similar awakenings occurred. People discovered skills they had never been taught, recalled information they had never learned. The Federation, it seemed, had preserved more than just technical specifications in their long peace. They had maintained the warrior spirit itself, carefully distributed throughout the population, waiting to be reactivated. 4 months into the war, the Voidborn Supreme Commander, Nexus Void Prime, called an emergency conclave of battle leaders. "The humans are not as they appeared," the Supreme Commander hissed in the Voidborn's crystalline language. "Our observers reported a species that had abandoned warfare, yet they fight with the precision of seasoned predators. Their vessels conceal unexpected capabilities," added Fleet Executor 7. What appeared to be scientific instruments reconfigure into weapon systems with minimal adaptation. This suggests deliberate design. "We have conquered 17 species across 12 star clusters," Nexus Void Prime responded. "None have offered such resistance. The humans must be broken decisively before they fully mobilize." The Voidborn launched a massive assault on Alpha Centauri, humanity's first extrasolar colony, and a symbol of their expansion among the stars. They committed nearly half their total fleet strength to the attack, expecting to deliver a psychological blow that would shatter human morale. Instead, they encountered the full awakened might of humanity. The battle lasted 7 days. Voidborn ships, technologically superior in many ways, found themselves outmaneuvered by human vessels, employing tactics drawn from 3,000 years of military history. When the Voidborn adapted to one approach, humans switched to another, drawing from an apparently inexhaustible repertoire of combat doctrines. Most disturbing to the Voidborn commanders was the change they observed in human behavior. The peaceful, diplomatic species they had initially encountered had transformed. Human communications, once formal and restrained, now carried a fierce determination. Their ships, once careful to avoid even accidental collisions, now executed ramming maneuvers when tactical advantage demanded it. On the 7th day, as the Voidborn fleet began a strategic withdrawal from Alpha Centauri, they detected a massive energy surge from Earth's solar system. Unknown weapon signature, reported Fleet Executor 7. Energy output exceeds anything in our records. What the Voidborn detected was humanity's final insurance policy. The Prometheus Array, a weapons system built before the Great Peace and then secured in Jupiter's orbit, powered down but maintained over 30 centuries. Now, it awoke, energizing massive particle accelerators that had lain dormant since before most current species had achieved spaceflight. The beam struck the Voidborn homeworld from 16 light-years away, transmitted through a precisely calculated quantum corridor. The damage was surgical, targeting only military installations with a precision that demonstrated both technological superiority and a chilling restraint. Within hours, a transmission reached every Voidborn vessel. Admiral Helena Chen's face filled their communication screens, her expression neither triumphant nor angry, but resolved. "We have demonstrated a fraction of our capability," she stated calmly. "Your military high command has been neutralized. Your production facilities remain intact, as do your civilian populations. This is humanity's only warning." She leaned forward slightly, her eyes betraying the ancient predator that lurked behind millennium of peace. 3,000 years ago, we chose to set aside our weapons because we had mastered the art of war so completely that it held no further challenge. We preserved our knowledge not out of fear, but out of responsibility. You have now witnessed why. The Voidborn retreat began immediately. Within weeks, they had abandoned every captured human world, withdrawing to their own territories and establishing a rigid quarantine zone between their space and Federation boundaries. 6 months after the conflict ended, the Federation Council convened to determine humanity's path forward. Many argued for maintaining their military readiness, suggesting that the galaxy had proven more dangerous than 3 millennia of peace had led them to believe. Admiral Chen, now the most respected voice in human space, addressed the council with unexpected words. "We must return to peace," she stated firmly. "Not out of naivety, but from wisdom. We have remembered what we can do when threatened, and that knowledge cannot be unlearned. But the greatness of humanity has never been our capacity for violence. It has been our ability to choose another way." She gestured toward the stars visible through the council chamber's transparent dome. "Let the Voidborn and any others who might threaten us remember what happened when they mistook our peacefulness for weakness. But let us remember who we truly are. Not conquerors, not warriors, though we can be those when necessary, but explorers and builders." The weapons were secured once more, though not dismantled. The ancestral guard remained active but transitioned to peacekeeping roles, and humanity continued its expansion among the stars, now regarded with a new respect by the other species of the galaxy. The Voidborn had awakened a sleeping giant and learned a lesson that spread throughout galactic civilization. Humans were not peaceful because they couldn't fight. They were peaceful because they had mastered war so thoroughly that they chose something better. But they remembered how to fight. They always would.